Okay, let's unpack this. We're navigating a world absolutely drowning in communication, aren't
Oh,
we?
really are. It's everywhere.
And it's not just, the words we read or the actual conversations we have anymore.
No, not at all.
It is the font on the screen, it's the emoji you pick, uh, how fast you reply, even which platform you decide to use for that reply.
Every little choice matters.
So for anyone trying to filter through all that noise and really get a handle on the genuine social weight of modern life,
Hmm.
just looking at language alone, just reading the text.
It's completely inadequate. Hopelessly so, really.
It truly is.
Yeah, traditional linguistic analysis, it often just assumes that the key to understanding meaning is, solely in the grammar or the semantics, maybe the structure of the spoken or written text.
Right. The old way.
But as you know, every choice you make when you communicate, which app, right, which photo you decide to share, which tone you adopt, it's all loaded with social significance. So our mission today really is to give you a kind of structural shortcut for understanding how those choices actually create action and, importantly, identity.
Okay, so we're pulling back the curtain a bit on how to analyze action in this multi-platform landscape we live in. And we're focusing on two powerful and I think interlocking methodologies.
That's right. First up, we have mediated discourse analysis, or MDA.
MDA, right?
And this one, it fundamentally changes the starting point of your analysis. It helps us understand these complex social actions, like, say, getting hired for a job or maybe ending a friendship, and the absolutely crucial role that cultural tools play.
Cultural tools, we mean like media platforms.
Exactly, particularly the media platforms themselves, how they enable or sometimes constrain those actions.
Okay. And the second one.
And second, we dive into multimodal discourse analysis, MMDA.
And then,
Now, if MDA helps explain why you chose a particular tool, MMDA explains how all the different semiotic resources within that tool, the images, the text, maybe the gesture in a video, the layout, how they all work together dynamically to actually construct meaning.
that makes sense. It's like the why and the how.
Precisely. And the foundational shift here, with MDA especially, is absolutely critical.
How so?
Well, MDA really insists that we have to avoid this ingrained assumption that discourse language basically is automatically the most important cultural tool involved in any given social action.
Ah, right. Because if you start with the language.
You're already assuming it's the primary driver.
Yeah.
Exactly. MDA forces us instead to start with the observable social action first, whatever it is people are doing.
Right.
And then we ask, okay, what role did language or media or any other tool play in making that happen?
Starting with the action first. It sounds kind of intuitive when you say it like that.
It does, doesn't it?
But I can see how it has these really profound analytical consequences. It completely flips the script on a lot of traditional communication studies, right?
Yeah.
Which usually start with the text and try to figure out the function from there.
It flips it completely. And what's fascinating here is how MDA highlights this gap, often a huge gap, between a tool's sort of intended use and how it's actually used socially.
Okay, give me an example.
We'll take a newspaper. Traditional analysis might focus on its genre, right? Its function is to convey news. Simple enough.
Sure.
But MDA forces us to look beyond that. Our sources point out, quite brilliantly, I think, that you might just as easily use that very same newspaper, the physical object, the newsprint, to wrap up your hot fish and chips.
Oh, right. Okay.
Now, in that context, the discourse, the printed words, it's still there, it's visible,
Right.
but its function in the social action, which is eating your dinner, is purely physical and insulating. It's not communicative in the traditional sense at all.
That's a really powerful illustration. It tells us the tool itself, the artifact, it's deeply flexible.
Incredibly flexible.
Let's think about a digital equivalent. Okay, how about the Facebook relationship status field?
A perfect example.
It's designed, obviously, to provide explicit information about your commitment status. Single, married, whatever.
That's the intended function, yes.
Yeah.
But how often do people strategically use it to actually avoid giving precise information?
All the time. By choosing, it's complicated.
Exactly. It's complicated. That choice is an action. It's an action that manages public perception. It controls access to personal details. The label itself is a piece of discourse, sure, but the action it achieves is ambiguity, boundary setting.
Okay, so to properly analyze how these complex actions unfold, MDA points us towards something called the nexus of practice.
That's right, the nexus of practice. It's a useful metaphor, really. It's the point where all the relevant elements converge to make a specific social action possible in a specific moment.
Converge. Okay, what elements are we talking about?
The nexus is defined by the confluence, the coming together of three crucial intersecting elements. The first one is the discourses in place.
Discourses in place.
Yeah, these are basically all the available cultural tools and resources relevant to the action. They can be physical, linguistic, digital, anything that's sort of on the table in that situation.
Let's ground this again. Let's stick with a simple action, maybe getting a specific coffee order, like a triple shot latte with oat milk at a busy coffee chain. What are the discourses in place there?
Oh, they are massive in scope, even for something seemingly simple.
Right.
Absolutely. You've got the visible tools, right? The physical layout of the store, the signs telling you where to order, the menu board, the types of cups they have, the espresso machine itself.
Okay, standard stuff.
But then there are all the invisible discourses, too. The pricing structure, the employee training manuals that dictate how they interact with you, the legal requirements for labeling allergens on the oat milk carton, maybe even the whole history of standardized coffee menus that makes ordering a triple shot latte a recognizable action in the first place.
Wow, okay. That's a lot.
All those tools, visible and invisible, they constrain and enable your ability to order that exact drink.
Right. So that brings us to the second element of the nexus, the interaction order.
Yes, the interaction order. This covers the immediate social relationships among the people actually involved in the action, right there and then.
So in the coffee shop.
In the coffee shop, this defines the relationship dynamics. Are you the customer speaking to the cashier? That relationship dictates specific ways of talking, turn-taking, expectations about politeness, speed. If, however, you walk up to the counter and suddenly realize the person behind it is your long-lost cousin you haven't seen in 10 years.
Whoa, okay.
The interaction order radically shifts, right? Instantly. The expected customer-cashier dynamic just dissolves. And the social action of ordering coffee might be completely halted, or at least paused, in favor of catching up. The action depends entirely on maintaining that specific interaction order.
That makes perfect sense. And the third element, which I have to say I find particularly fascinating, is the historical body.
Ah, yes, the historical body.
This sounds like it's basically your accumulated cultural software, like everything you bring to the table as an individual.
That's a great way to put it. It's the individual actor's knowledge, their habits, their skills, their past experiences, even their physical state.
So walking into that coffee shop again, my historical body includes.
It includes knowing how to read the menu. That's a basic literacy skill.
Yeah.
It includes knowing you absolutely hate almond milk because you tried it once and it was awful. That's a personal experience.
Definitely hate almond milk.
And perhaps, crucially, having the specific habit of ordering that exact triple shot oat milk latte automatically because you do it every single day on your way to work, it's ingrained.
Right, muscle memory almost.
Or if you had a diagnosed allergy, say to nuts, your historical body would compel you to read the fine print on the oat milk, maybe ask specific questions about cross-contamination. That changes the entire trajectory of the interaction. The seemingly simple action, ordering coffee, is built on the history you carry in your body.
Wow. So in those three elements, the tools, discourses in place, the relationships, interaction order, and your personal history, historical body, when they intersect.
That's the nexus. That's the point where the social action actually occurs.
The clarity this framework provides, it seems especially powerful when the action is complex and maybe emotionally charged.
Absolutely. And a prime example of this comes from the work done by anthropologist Alana Gershon on the mediated breakup.
Ah, yes. The breakup. This is such a relatable example, isn't it?
Highly relatable.
We all seem to instinctively judge people for, say, breaking up via text message versus doing it face-to-face. Why does the medium itself carry so much moral weight?
Well, Gershon's research suggests that the medium becomes, inextricably linked to the individual's identity. How you choose to end it says something fundamental about who you are.
So using the wrong medium.
Using the wrong medium, maybe a vague email, or just changing your relationship status without warning, it risks enacting the wrong kind of person. You get judged, cowardly, disrespectful, cruel, whatever the judgment is. The choice of the cultural tool becomes a statement about who you are being in that moment, not just what you're saying.
Let's use the MDA framework here, thinking about affordances and constraints. What does each medium allow, and what does it restrict? If you choose face-to-face, what does it afford?
Face-to-face affords immense richness and immediacy, right? It allows you to gauge the other person's reaction in real time, second by second. You can adjust your tone, maybe soften your explanation, provide nonverbal cues of sincerity or regret. The relationship itself is foregrounded.
But the constraints.
The constraints are equally significant. It severely constrains your ability to end the conversation quickly or easily. You're kind of stuck there. And it physically prevents the person being broken up with from hiding their immediate feelings, their sadness, anger, disappointment. It's undeniably a high-stakes, high-feedback situation.
Okay, now contrast that with digital media. A simple text message, maybe an email. What do those tools afford?
Well, digital tools primarily afford speed, distance, and a certain kind of control.
Control, yeah.
You can deliver the message, the definitive statement, and immediately create space. You can avoid a direct confrontation. If you anticipate, extreme emotional conflict, this can seem like a very appealing constraint avoidance mechanism.
But the downside?
The downside is huge. They dramatically constrain your ability to convey genuine remorse or compassion or sincerity because all that richness of multimodal cues, tone of voice, facial expression, posture, it's just absent. And that very deficit of cues is precisely why the sender of, say, a text breakup is often perceived as detached or careless or cruel. The tool itself ends up carrying a heavy negative identity implication.
And critically, MDA also shows us that these complex social practices like breaking up, they're rarely achieved by just one single isolated action, are they?
No, rarely ever. Breaking up is often an example of activity complexity. It's achieved through a chain or combination of different media used over time.
A chain? Like how?
Well, think about the trajectory it might take. You might start with a text message that functions as a kind of warning shot, or maybe a request for a meeting, we need to talk.
The dreaded text.
A dreaded text. Then maybe you negotiate the timing and the location over instant messaging. The climactic action, the actual conversation might happen face-to-face, but all the groundwork, the signaling, the expectation setting, that's already been accomplished through a series of discrete, mediated actions beforehand.
That concept of the media chain, that's really vital, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just how things like accountability and emotional labor get distributed across multiple platforms, multiple moments.
Exactly. It's not just one moment. It's a process mediated by tools.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture, thinking about consequence, MDA seems indispensable for understanding actions that have a real cost or consequence.
Absolutely. Think about something as seemingly simple and instantaneous today as the ability to buy with one click online.
Okay. One click. Seems simple.
Seems simple, but that final microaction, just clicking the button, it's only the very tip of the iceberg. MDA compels us, forces us really, to look at the entire trajectory of discourse that precedes and supports that single click.
The trajectory, meaning what?
Meaning everything that made it possible. The interface design that strategically guides your attention towards that button. The lengthy terms and conditions you probably scrolled right past, that's legal discourse. The product labels and certifications you might have glanced at. The complex supply chain logistics discourse that gets the item to you. And crucially, your own personal historical habit of saving your credit card information on that site, making the click frictionless.
Wow. So the action of purchasing isn't just the click.
No. It's enabled by this massive complex circuit of discourse and tools operating over time and space.
By starting with the action, as MDA insists, it forces us to confront just how deep the mediation goes. It really reveals a whole system beneath the surface click.
That's the power of it.
Okay, this leads us perfectly, I think, into the second pillar of our deep dive today. If MDA tells us why we chose a particular cultural tool, face-to-face, text message, that e-commerce site, then MNGA tells us how all the different parts within that tool actually work together to create meaning.
Exactly.
And here's where it gets, for me anyway, really interesting, because discourse includes so much more than just language.
Oh, absolutely. MMDA is just crucial for the modern learner, anyone trying to understand communication now, precisely because it addresses the total inadequacy of analyzing words in isolation.
Right.
I mean, think about a typical Facebook post or a text message exchange or a TikTok video. Meanings is constructed by multiple modes working together simultaneously. You've got words, images, maybe emojis, music, font choices, video editing techniques, the physical arrangement of elements on the screen.
That's a whole package.
It's a whole package. And if you ignore the visual modes or the auditory modes, you're literally missing half the meaning, maybe more.
So how do we even begin to systematically break down something as complex as, say, a static image, or maybe an advertisement that relies almost entirely on visual cues? We can't just diagram the sentences, obviously.
No, you can't. But what MMDA does is it cleverly adapts powerful linguistic analysis tools, specifically drawing from Halliday's functional framework to apply them to nonverbal communication.
Halliday. Okay.
Yeah, this framework lets us analyze visual communications systematically. It guides the analysis by asking us to consider three major functions, which we can think of as asking three core questions about the image or the visual text.
Okay, let's break down those three functions. What's the first question we should ask?
The first function is the ideational function. Basically, this asks, what is being represented?
What's in the picture?
Essentially, yes. Just like linguistic analysis looks for the who's doing what, here we identify the participants, the main figures or objects in the image, and the processes, the actions or states being depicted.
Okay, but how are actions shown visually? We don't usually have verbs in pictures.
That's a great question. They're often shown through vectors.
Vectors, like in physics?
Sort of.
Yeah.
A vector in this sense is a compositional element. It could be a literal line like an arrow, or an implied line like someone's gaze, or a pointing limb, anything that indicates directionality. And that directionality portrays a process or an action.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. Think of a simple road sign with an arrow pointing right. That arrow is a clear vector communicating the action or process of turning right. Or imagine an advertisement where a person is looking directly at a product. Their gaze line acts as an implied vector, connecting them to the product, suggesting the process of desiring or observing it.
Ah, okay. The line of sight creates the action link.
Exactly. And this ideational analysis also involves classification, right?
So,
We need to figure out the image's basic structure.
how so?
Well, we ask, is it primarily narrative? Meaning, does it contain these directional vectors that tell some kind of story or show a process unfolding, maybe like a diagram showing cause and effect?
Okay.
Or is it analytical? Does it show the components that make up a whole, like a cutaway diagram of an engine?
Right.
Or finally, is it classificatory? Does it simply show different types of things, maybe like a chart classifying different species of birds? Understanding this basic structure helps us grasp the fundamental purpose of the visual message.
Got it. Ideational is about what's represented. What's the second function?
The second is the interpersonal function. This is where the image or its producer addresses the viewer, you, directly.
So, how the picture makes you feel or relate to it.
Precisely. It's all about the social relationship the producer of the image is trying to establish with you, the recipient. And this is achieved through specific visual tools, most notably perspective and gaze.
Perspectives and gaze. How do they work?
Well, think about gaze first. If the figure in the image looks directly out at the camera, directly at you, that establishes what we call a contact or a demand relationship. They're kind of inviting you into a dialogue, demanding your attention.
Okay.
If, on the other hand, the figure is looking away, perhaps at something else within the frame or off into the distance, that creates an offer relationship. You're invited to observe them or observe what they're looking at without that direct interaction.
Interesting. And perspective, like camera angle.
Exactly. The camera angle profoundly affects the power dynamic. A high angle, looking down on the subject, tends to make them look smaller, perhaps less powerful, more vulnerable. A low angle, looking up at the subject, tends to empower them, making them look dominant or imposing.
So every selfie angle, every choice of where a model looks in a stock photo, that's all deliberate semiotic negotiation of relationship and power.
Absolutely deliberate. Nothing is accidental in well-composed visuals. And finally, the third function is the textual function.
Textual. So this is about how it's put together, like layout.
Precisely. While language is typically organized linearly, unfolding in time, images are primarily spatial. How elements are placed within the frame, their spatial organization, creates pathways for the viewer's gaze and establishes a kind of hierarchy of importance.
How does placement create hierarchy?
There are common conventions. For instance, in Western cultures reading left to right, elements placed on the left side of an image often represent the given information that's assumed to be familiar or already known. Elements on the right side tend to represent the new, the key information or takeaway the producer wants you to focus on.
Left is known, right is new. Okay.
Similarly, there's often a vertical dynamic. The top part of an image frequently represents the ideal, maybe aspirations, generalized concepts, the promise, and the bottom part often represents the real practical details, immediate actions, the foundation.
Ideal, real, given, new.
Yeah.
That's a powerful map for reading images.
It really is. And to see this kind of synthesis in action, let's go back to that concrete example from our sources, the university student's Snapchat post.
Right, the one taken secretly in a translation class. It shows the desk surface, a notebook, a bag, and the caption says, "Life is hard in translation class."
Okay, let's apply the framework step by step. First, the ideational analysis. What's represented?
Well, it's mostly objects on a desk, right? So classificatory.
Primarily classificatory, yes. It's listing objects. Desk, notebook, bag. But there's a powerful implied vector. Notice how the desk runs diagonally across the frame.
Yeah, it cuts across.
That diagonal line creates a vector suggesting the photographer, the student, is looking over or past the desk towards the front of the room. Presumably, that's where the teacher is lecturing.
Ah, so that vector subtly communicates the action of, well, secretly looking or maybe monitoring the teacher while using the phone.
Exactly. The photo isn't just a static list of items. It's capturing a moment during an ongoing action, an action of transgression.
Okay. Now, the interpersonal analysis, how does it relate to the viewer?
This is crucial. The photo is taken from behind the desk, clearly from the student's own vantage point. That immediate placement positions you, the viewer, in the exact same physical and social space as the photographer.
So it feels like I'm the one hiding the phone.
Precisely. It invites a conspiratorial relationship. You, the audience on Snapchat, are brought into the secret, sharing the transgressive act of using a mobile phone when you're not supposed to.
The context, the rule breaking is absolutely everything here. The meaning isn't just in the words "life is hard."
No, not at all. The full synthesis, the real aha moment, comes from the contrast. The contrast between the literal caption, which is a kind of mundane complaint about the difficulty of the class, and the secret, risky, rule-breaking activity they're actually engaged in and sharing. The image, in its totality, communicates these complex themes of power and solidarity. You've got the teacher's institutional hard power in setting the rule, no phones in class. But that's being subtly subverted by the student's soft power, the power to secretly break that rule and, importantly, to build solidarity with their online peers by sharing the act.
And if the photo were taken from the teacher's perspective, looking down at the student,
The entire meaning would collapse. It would become an image of surveillance and discipline, not conspiracy and solidarity. The perspective is everything.
that's structural analysis of the static Snapchat image. That gives us a really solid foundation. But now, we need to think about applying MMDA to dynamic environments. Because modern communication is almost never static, is it?
Absolutely not.
Conversations aren't linear anymore. They're not contained. They travel. The whole nature of conversation feels like it's changing dramatically.
That's such a critical point. Think about typical digital conversations today. They're often asynchronous, right? They stretch out over hours, days, sometimes even months.
The endless group chat.
The endless group chat, and they are intensely multimodal. You're constantly mixing writing with images, maybe memes, GIFs, links, sometimes voice notes.
Yeah.
And crucially, as you said, they often travel across different media platforms. You might start a discussion over lunch, face to face. Then someone shares relevant articles over email later that day. And maybe the final details get hammered out in a flurry of rapidly exchanged WhatsApp messages that night.
That complexity.
Yeah.
It really demands tools for analyzing dynamic, real-time, multimodal interaction. Whether it's face-to-face interaction or maybe a video call or even tracking these cross-platform exchanges.
It does. And for the analyst, it requires maintaining this incredible level of scrutiny. You have to balance paying attention to the tiny micro details like a fleeting glance, a slight shift in posture, a subtle intonation contour in the voice, with understanding how all those micro elements work together to achieve the overarching higher level social actions people are engaged in.
Micro details building up to macro actions. How do we manage that complexity analytically?
Well, MMDA offers 3 particularly useful concepts for navigating this in dynamic interaction. First, there's sequentiality.
Sequentiality, so the order things happen in.
Exactly. It's about how lower level actions, a gesture, a throat clear, a word are arranged in time, in sequence, to form meaningful higher level actions.
Can you give an example of a low-level sequence building to a high-level action?
Certainly. Imagine a meeting. A low level action might be someone clearing their throat. Then they shift their posture slightly forward in their chair. Then they make direct eye contact with the current speaker.
Okay, I can picture that.
Sequentially, those small actions happening in that specific order build up to achieve the higher level social action of signaling intent to take the floor or requesting a turn to speak. The throat clear by itself doesn't mean much, but in that sequence, followed by the posture shift and gaze, it becomes a recognizable, meaningful move in the conversation.
Right. The sequence creates the meaning of the whole. What's the second concept?
Second, we have simultaneity.
Things happening at the same time.
Precisely. This focuses on the immediate co-occurrence of different modal elements and how things happening at the exact same instant affect how each element is interpreted.
This seems like where ambiguity or maybe contradiction could come in.
Very often, yes. This is where things get really interesting interpretively. Imagine someone says, quite clearly, "Oh yes, I am perfectly fine with that decision."
Okay, sounds agreeable.
But simultaneously, as they say those words, they shift their weight backwards slightly away from the table, and you notice their jaw tightens just a little.
Mixed signals.
Exactly. The spoken word, "I'm fine," and the nonverbal cues, backward shift, tight jaw, are in direct conflict. They're happening simultaneously. That forces the listener or the analyst into a complex interpretation. You have to decide, does the verbal reassurance carry the true meaning, or does the nonverbal tension reveal their actual stance? The simultaneity creates the puzzle.
Okay, sequentiality and simultaneity. What's the third concept? This one seems to tie back to MDA's focus on prioritization and consequence. Modal density.
Yes, modal density. This is a really useful one. It refers to the, let's say, intensity or the complexity with which different modes are being engaged at any particular moment in an interaction.
Intensity or complexity?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that tell us?
It effectively tells us what social actions the participants are prioritizing or where they're trying to direct the most attention and effort. When a particular moment in an interaction has high modal density, it means many different modes, maybe gaze, speech, gesture, manipulating an interface on a screen, are all being engaged intensely and simultaneously towards a specific goal.
So it helps us see a kind of hierarchy of attention, even when multiple things are happening.
That's exactly it. Let's use that classic, slightly chaotic, modern, digital, physical scenario. Imagine you're standing in your kitchen.
Okay. Kitchen chaos. I know it well.
You're simultaneously talking to your boss on your mobile phone. Maybe it's on speaker, resting on the counter. At the same time, you're trying to quickly text your partner about what's needed for dinner tonight. And simultaneously, again, you're gesturing emphatically with a pen towards a specific word on a physical shopping list that's taped to the fridge door.
Right. Juggling multiple interactions, multiple modes.
A perfect nexus of practice for analyzing modal density. You are demonstrably engaged in at least 3 high-level social actions: reporting progress to your boss, coordinating dinner plans, and maybe trying to locate the rocket arugula you urgently need from that list.
Okay.
Now, while you're speaking words to your boss, that mode seems dominant. Perhaps the highest modal density might actually be focused on that shopping list.
How so?
Think about it. Your focused gaze is directed at the list. Your physical gesture, pointing firmly with the pen, is aimed at the list. And the quick, sharp, maybe slightly impatient text message you simultaneously fire off to your partner, need rocket. All that focused energy suggests that the action of getting the dinner plans finalized, specifically identifying that ingredient, is actually receiving the most intense and complex coordination of different modes right then.
So even though the phone call with the boss seems important.
The modal density analysis reveals that in that specific moment, the prioritization of your attention and multimodal effort might be directed elsewhere towards the shopping list and the text. Modal density helps us see the focus of social action in real time, even when one mode, like speech, might seem to be the main event.
That really shows us that the spontaneous, maybe transient nature of speech, even in what seems like a serious phone call, can easily be overshadowed, attention-wise, by the focused, multimodal engagement required for a simple, quick action like adding an item to a list or sending that urgent text.
It absolutely underlines the necessity of MMDA. The different modes are not just working together nicely, they're often competing for attention, and they're frequently hierarchically arranged by the user's focus and intention in the moment.
Fascinating. Okay, let's try and pull this all together.
Okay.
We've looked at MDA, starting with the action, the role of cultural tools, the nexus of practice, the mediated breakup, affordances and constraints, media chains. And we've looked at MMDA, the need to go beyond text, the visual analysis frame, ideational, interpersonal, textual, the Snapchat example, and these tools for dynamic interaction, sequentiality, simultaneity, modal density.
That's a good summary.
So if we connect MDA and MMDA to the bigger picture, what's the key relevance for you, the listener, trying to make sense of communication today?
Well, I think the core relevance is the ability to see communication not just as this passive transmission of information or data, but as an active, ongoing, highly consequential social performance.
A performance. I like that.
Yeah. Whether we're analyzing the specific media platform chosen for a high-stakes social action like ending a relationship, that's MDA,
Right.
or whether we're analyzing the dynamic combination of modes used within a single digital post or interaction, that's MMDA. The central takeaway, I believe, is that our identities and the meanings we create are constantly being negotiated, mutually negotiated.
Through the tools we use and how we use them.
Exactly. We are constantly deploying this vast toolkit of cultural resources, images, text, sounds, physical gestures, digital platforms to communicate not just information, but who we are and what we are doing in relation to others.
So these two approaches, MDA and MMDA, they really give you the necessary analytical tools to tackle situations where communication has moved decisively beyond just simple spoken or written text. You're not just reacting to the surface message anymore. You're equipped to analyze the entire structural scaffolding that made that message possible and meaningful in the first place.
Well put. And we've seen, haven't we, how seemingly simple choices, the font you pick for a message, the camera perspective in a photograph, or that fundamental decision to send a text instead of making a phone call, how these choices have profound, often unforeseen, structural consequences for our social relationships and how our identities are perceived.
The media isn't just a neutral carrier pipe.
Not at all. It's an active participant, a co-conspirator, you might even say, in the social action itself.
Let's try and synthesize this one last time using that mediated breakup scenario.
Yeah.
We know from MDA that the choice of platform, say, sending a text message, carries significant social weight. It implies certain things about the sender's character, right?
Right. Often perceived negatively, cowardly, lacking respect, etc.
Okay, but now let's layer in MMDA. What if, instead of just a plain text message, the person sends a breakup message that includes, I don't know, a popular meme featuring a crying cartoon character, uses a really aggressive, angry-looking all-caps font, and adds a sarcastic-sounding emoji at the end?
Okay, wow. That's a complex multimodal message right there.
So how does that specific multimodal input affect the social weight that was already determined by the platform choice, the text message itself?
Well, the platform choice, MDA, might broadly say, I am cowardly or I'm avoiding confrontation. But the specific multimodal composition within that text, MMDA, adds layers of complexity, maybe even contradiction. The meme might be an attempt at ironic detachment. The all-caps font signals anger or intensity. The sarcastic emoji undercuts any potential sincerity.
So it changes the message from maybe just cowardly to something like, I am cruel, maybe callous, but also perhaps trying to be funny or dismissive about this.
Exactly. The MMDA analysis reveals that micro-negotiation of tone, sincerity, and emotional stance that's happening within the macro-level constraint imposed by the platform choice, MDA. And that complex interplay, that's really where the deepest insights into human communication, especially mediated communication, currently reside.
Okay, so what does this all mean then? Here's a final thought for you to take away. If, as Alana Gershen's research showed us, complex social actions like breaking up are often accomplished not in one single moment, but by moving across a chain of cultural tools and media, maybe starting with text, moving to a phone call, culminating face-to-face.
The immediate chain.
How does this concept of modal density, which we discussed under MMDA, help you analyze which specific part of that transition chain, which specific interaction along the way actually holds the most emotional or social weight, and why?
Ooh, that's a great question to ponder.
Is the moment of highest modal density the most intense combination of gaze, gesture, speech, emotional expression, always at the final face-to-face confrontation? Or could it perhaps occur much earlier in the chain, maybe during that really anxious emoji-laden text exchange where the plans for the talk are being made, the one that signals their inevitable doom? Where does the real weight lie?